A federal lawsuit is challenging an Arkansas law that makes it a crime for a tenant to fail to leave a property after eviction. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the state of Arkansas. Now, I've actually covered this topic before, but in Arkansas, they actually have a state law in place that makes it a crime for a tenant to fail to vacate a property after eviction. So it's pretty controversial law, and I don't believe any other states across the entire country have anything that's similar to it. And now it's being challenged by a lawsuit in the federal courts. Now, before I get into the article, though, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of this kind of law, okay? Do you think it should be a crime? Should tenants be fined or possibly even jailed for not vacating a property after eviction? Honestly, I think so. Yeah, I agree. Okay, if you want to know the truth. If they are not getting out of your property, it's your property, it's not theirs. Essentially, they're trespassing at that point, and they're not listening to the orders of the court, and it's causing a huge issue. So arrest these people, get them out of there, fine them, send them the bill, because, hey, it's my property and I want it back. So, this article, it's coming from hotsr.com, and it says, watch, lawsuit challenges failure to vacate. And let's see what this article says. A federal lawsuit is challenging the Arkansas criminal failure to vacate statute, arguing the law is unconstitutional. The lawsuit, filed in U.S. District Court for the Western District of Arkansas on September 2nd, claims Arkansas is the only state in the country that criminalizes the failure to pay rent. Under the state law, a tenant who is late on rent forfeits their right to occupy the property. A landlord can then give the tenant a 10-day notice to vacate the property. If they fail to vacate by the end of that time period, the tenant can be charged with a misdemeanor and fined up to $25 every day they stay in the property. So, if you're late on your rent, okay, then all the landlord has to do is give you a 10-day notice to vacate the property, okay? And this is without even getting to the eviction court, it looks like, okay? And if you don't vacate the property at the end of that time period, you can be charged with a misdemeanor, okay? And obviously, the police can arrest you on a misdemeanor, and you can be fined up to $25 per day. So let's say that you're late on the rent. The rent's due on February 1st, okay? So on February the 10th, or, basically then the landlord can, on February 1st, then the landlord can give you the 10-day failure to vacate, right? So on February 10th, then you can call the police and have this person charged with this misdemeanor crime, right? And if you are convicted of the misdemeanor crime, then they can, fine you or, whatever. Okay, so you get jail time. Maybe they could even arrest you just for the charge alone. I don't know exactly how this works, but it does not sound good for the tenant for sure. Now, it doesn't say here anything about having to go to court and, file for eviction or any of that. So honestly, this sounds a little bit sketchy. I'm not exactly sure if it's constitutional or not. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm a landlord, and all I know is that I want the tenant to be motivated to leave my property or pay me the money that I'm owed. So I'm willing to do whatever is within the law to do that. There are many other types of contracts in the law, and in no other situation is the breach of a contract treated as a criminal offense unless there's fraud involved. And our statute doesn't address fraud at all, said Lynn Foster, law professor emeritus at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock School of Law and president of Arkansans for Stronger Communities. The lawsuit alleges that the plaintiffs, Cynthia and Terry Easley of Malvern, were served with a failure to vacate criminal eviction notice after falling behind on rent. After their landlord replaced their water tank, which stopped working, and left them without running water, the two were unable to afford rent due to new expenses such as renting a porta potty and buying bottled water. Okay, well, the landlord I mean, didn't tell them they had to rent a porta potty. Okay, I mean, that seems like a little bit ridiculous. And as for buying bottled water, I mean, listen, it sounds like the landlord was able to get the water tank repaired and fixed. And, if they were able to do that in a reasonable amount of time, it's, what more do you expect, okay? The landlord can only do so much. If we call a plumber and the plumber's like, hey, it's going to take me a day to get out there, well, that's what has to be done. And I know that's unfortunate, but that's not, beyond the realm of reality when you're dealing with contractors and you're dealing with the landlord. The landlord just can't snap their fingers and make some repairs instantly done. Okay? So, I mean, notice that they said that they had stopped paying their rent and they couldn't afford it anymore. Well, it's unlikely that the repair alone was the reason they couldn't afford their rent. Okay? So, I'm not trying to judge what, happened in the situation because I wasn't there 100%. But what I will say is that, simply put, if the landlord was within their rights to, use this law against these tenants, then that's what the landlord was doing. Okay, they weren't trying to break the Constitution. They were following Arkansas state law. According to the complaint, both of the Easleys have disabilities and chronic health conditions and have a combined income of less than $1,200 a month in Social Security disability payments. The two stopped paying rent in December of 2020, no longer being able to afford to do so, and were given the eviction notice in April of 2021. The case argues that the law criminalizes poverty, making it a form of wealth-based discrimination in violation of the 14th Amendment, as well as violating due process rights. Among other allegations, it also argues the law violates the 8th Amendment for imposing excessive fines that are grossly disproportionate to the underlying crime and are imposed without consideration of a tenant's ability to pay. That might very well be the case, okay? If they win their lawsuit, that is the case. However, that doesn't change the fact that from December until April, hey, they didn't pay the rent. Okay, this guy, he didn't actually, it says right here that they were given an eviction notice in April of 2021, even though they stopped paying in December. So this guy, it's not like he waited 10 days and then served them, the notice to vacate. He waited 4 months, okay? 4 months of no rent from these people. And guess what? If their income is 100% from Social Security disability, Social Security disability didn't stop paying them during those 4 months. They just chose to stop paying their landlord. Okay? That's the bad part here. Their income did not change. Maybe their expenses changed in other areas, but their income did not change. This landlord gave them a break for 4 months by waiting for 4 months before filing for eviction. And then when they do file for eviction, and then they're like, oh, well, we're in poverty, etc. Well, you were in poverty before you stopped paying. You were in the same financial situation before you stopped paying. That's it's frustrating, and I sometimes wonder if lawyers are trumping up a lot of these lawsuits against landlords and lawsuits, because they just want to make a whole bunch of money. And, we end up here where we have landlords who are, paying out the butt because these lawyers, more than anything, are trying to get paid. The Easleys are being represented in the lawsuit by the UALR Bowen Legal Clinic and the nonprofit law organization Equal Justice Under Law. Phil Telfayan, executive director of Equal Justice Under Law, said they want Arkansas to repeal what he calls a draconian law. In Arkansas, they've made it a crime to be poor. It's effectively a criminalization of poverty, he said. The most onerous part of the statute, Telfayan said, is the way it allows fines to pile up for every day the tenant stays in the apartment past the initial 10-day warning period. Telfayan said it's like adding insult to injury, driving people further into debt, and the threat of facing jail time can also force people to self-evict. potentially becoming homeless and making their situation much worse. I think the whole point of the law was to get people to self-evict so they wouldn't have to go through the eviction process. So these people would just leave on their own and move along to somewhere they can afford rather than just staying indefinitely, while these fines were building up. I mean, it's kind of a motivational thing when you see, hey, I'm getting fined $25 a day. After 10 days, you owe $250. After 30 days, you owe $750. Well, guess what? Most people aren't going to stick around until, they owe thousands of dollars if that's the case. They're going to get the heck out of there as quickly as possible, okay? Now, I'm not saying this law is legal or this law is constitutional. What I am saying is that saying all this stuff and about poverty and all that, right? And criminalizing poverty. Well, did they even look at the fact that the landlord let them stay in the unit for 4 months before they even filed for eviction? Okay, so the landlord ate 4 months of losses. And then they're going to go after, they should have just the landlord has to get paid. That is the simple fact of the matter. Most landlords have a mortgage on their property. And even the ones who don't, they still have other expenses like taxes, insurance, property management, utilities, etc. Okay? So there are so many expenses that are involved with just owning a property. Not getting paid the rent makes it a losing proposition. We're not a charity. How many times do I have to say this? Okay, I mentioned this so many times in my videos about the eviction moratorium. Landlords are not a charity. We're not here to make sure that the poor and the impoverished have housing. That is the job of, the government or the people themselves. You gotta do what you gotta do. But we are a for-profit landlords. We do this to make money. We don't do this out of the kindness of our hearts. So interesting story. I'm kind of interested to see what the courts say about this Arkansas law. I wish there were laws like this throughout the country, but like I said, I don't know if this is constitutional or not, but let's see what it says. I'll keep everyone updated in a future video.